Successful weekend for the most part in Minneapolis. I was really proud of the way the women competed. I think for all of us this year, it was just a little bit of a different lead up. But everything that we asked them to do over those 5 days, they did. They competed hard. We were able to surpass our number of finalists from last year. And like I said, we scored more points than the last 3 seasons. So a lot of positives. Phoebe was just did a great job. She's just been so solid and so steady all year long. So to see her stand up on that stage and win 2 Big Ten titles, and for as accomplished as she is and was coming into Wisconsin, it's still a new experience, right? There's still a lot of adjustments to NCAA swimming, and she's just handled them so well. And so, now we are in a position to get her ready for NCAAs. We also feel really good about Lily Hosak qualifying for NCAAs, Mara Newman, a junior, qualifying for NCAAs, and then Emily Ecker, another freshman, qualifying for NCAAs. So between those 4, and we also have 2 relays provisionally qualified. We're hoping to go to Greensboro here in 2 weeks and continue our season and score some more points and try and put those women in position to be All-Americans this year, both individual and as part of relays. We leave. Our men's team leaves today. I leave tomorrow. We are now going to be going to Columbus for the men's meet for 5 days. Backtrack and just to highlight one thing that Jess mentioned. Diving took place last week, and one of the big highlights there was Tasman Abramowitz doing a great job. I think he was 4th on platform, top 8 on platform, and just Taz is just so committed and has done a great job all year long. And so kudos to him for kind of standing up in that environment and getting that done. I think that was one of the benefits of having our new facility this year was that he got to touch platform. He got to train that more often. And I think it probably helped him as we got ready for Big Tens. He has qualified for zones. Another freshman, Daniel Muller, has also qualified for zones. So those 2 are going to go to Lexington, Kentucky next week to try and move on to NCAAs. Now talking about our men, we have 19 guys that are going to be competing in Columbus this week. And very similar to the women, our goal is to go there and train and race the best we can. Improve our point standing from last year. We were 4th. That was our last year. It was kind of one of our highest finishes. I think it was our highest finish in about 20 years. So we're going to continue that momentum and try and chip away at the top 3. And then also one of the goals is to qualify people on the NCAAs to the NCAA championships. I would say that some people that we're really looking forward to watching the race in our junior class, Eric Gesner and Josh Danhauser have been really good, been really solid all year long for us. Eric is from Minnesota and just has had just a really great progression throughout his career. Josh Danhauser is a junior from Auburn, a junior transfer from Auburn, who has just come in and immediately made his mark on the program. A couple really big wins for us in our dual meets these past months. On the sophomore side, Wes Jekyll is a local guy from Madison, one of the best swimmers to come out of Wisconsin recently. He was an NCAA qualifier last year, our school record holder at the 200 IM. So unfortunately, he didn't get the opportunity to go to NCAAs last year due to it being canceled, but he's just been so good for us in these dual meets, and he's put together a really great year. So we're looking for him to continue. And then we're really happy with our freshmen. I mean, they've come in and made an impact right away. And Andrew Benson from New Hampshire, father was a Badger swimmer, been able to do everything. He swims IM, swims middle distance, swims sprints. So we're going to rely on him next week from an individual perspective, but also for relays. We have another freshman, Jake Newmark from New York, who has come in and made an impact and has won a couple key races for us. And so we feel good about him. And then we have a distance swimmer from California, Jude Williams, another freshman. And so, it's a tight knit group. It's a smaller group this year, but they're ready to go. They're excited, and they're going to go to Columbus, and we're going to give it all we got.
Questions for Coach?
I've got one. Yuri, can you explain how it works? I mean, you've got athletes here and there and going in different directions. You and your assistant coaches have to, I would imagine, keep a pretty close contact with all of them and know what they need. How do you do that in a season like this when it's a little bit more hands-off and distance and things like that? Has that been more of a challenge for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. It has, in a sense that, yes, communication, even if something is wanting to sit down and have a one-on-one with an athlete, you have to be aware of, okay, are we, are we 6 feet apart, or be, so I think COVID has created some issues with communication in that way, getting everyone together and meeting with everyone. But I would say that from my standpoint as a head coach, I'm lucky in that I have, 4 great assistants. The past week, Jenna Haney and Christy King were really working a lot with the women, and then Eric Posier and Trevor Maida have really worked a lot with the men. And then I split my time between both. And so, it's constant communication, checking in. When I'm at the women's meet, I'm talking with Eric and Trevor. Hey, how are the men? How are they moving? How do they respond to this training session? Where do we think we are as we're getting closer to Big Tens? And then now, when I'm going to be in Columbus with the men, it's working with Jenna and Christy. Hey, our 6 women that are going on the NCAAs, how are they looking? How are they moving in the weight room? And so it requires constant communication. And we've got, that group that's now going to NCAAs. We've got, our divers, we've got our men going to Big Tens. And so there's a lot going on. So yeah, it's every day. And you just try and you go off what you've done in the past. You trust the plan, you trust where you want to be. But you also have to be, flexible as you move through
it. Further questions for Coach? One from Kelly.
Hi, Yuri. So you have a really generally young team, I would say, for the men, and I feel like they've just been through 2 really, really abnormal seasons, especially for those sophomores who didn't get to finish last year and had to be sent home, and then for these freshmen who are coming in a COVID season. What are some of the messages that you give to them to keep them focused and keep everything kind of on track? Because you still have the same goals in mind, but in a really strange year, especially for these really, really young guys.
Right. Great question. I think this year, I think the goal, we almost tried to compartmentalize it. It was like, first semester, it was, okay, let's get to December. We were able to do some things internally. We were able to race. So, hey, let's get through December. Let's race internally. Let's go our inter squads. Let's focus on that. We come back in January. We find out we have dual meets. Okay, we've got 3 competitions. Let's try and go 3-0 during there. 3rd week of January, we find out we're going to have a Big Ten championship. So it's like, okay, now let's reset. So I think that it's just kind of trying to compartmentalize everything with the team and take it one step at a time, and not worry about, well, is there going to be a Big Tens? Is there going to be an NCAAs? And at the same time, trying to meet them in the middle and give them some room to take we probably trained at about maybe a 75 to 80% capacity this year, just because I think there was always that balance of making sure that they were healthy, that they're taking care of themselves, that their mental health was good, while at the same time, trying to push the competitive side. Hey, let's set some big goals. We want to get, we want to score more points there. And so that was a balance that I think the staff and I were constantly trying to strike with that team. I think the freshmen, when they came in the fall, they didn't really know any better, right? I mean, this was all new to them. And so I think if anything, they were the ones that were probably the most adaptable, because this is all they've known. Whereas I think with the upperclassmen, it would have been kind of trying to maybe work with them and coach them through this and know that, okay, this is not going to be a normal, it's not going to be a normal Big Tens. We're going to be on the pool deck. You're going to be in the stands. We can't meet, we can't eat in the same room together, right? We have to take to-go meals. And so I think it's just been trying to, take it one thing at a time, compartmentalize it, and then also prep them and talk to them as transparently and as honestly as possible about what to expect.
Coach, one last question. I know we're focused on Big Tens, we're focused on NCAAs right now. For swimming and diving, the Olympics are obviously on the horizon now, even with the changing. How are the Badger student athletes with the potential Olympic promise? How are they balancing that training and kind of keeping that in mind? And what do we know about the trials for those student athletes?
Yeah, great question. So it's in the back of our minds. I think it's something that we've been able to touch throughout the year. We train 50 meters every once in a while, right? That's the course that Olympic trials and international meets are contested at. We had a small group engage on their own in a long course meet back in December, and we actually had an athlete qualify for Olympic trials. I believe between our current athletes here and then some of our incoming athletes, we've got about, I think it's about 17 or 18 athletes qualified for Olympic trials this summer. And so we're going to go there and do the best job we can. USA just have a big competition in Omaha, and that was going to take place kind of that second week of June. They have now split that up. It was a meet that was about 1,400, 1,500 people strong. Obviously, right now we have people, a multi-billable event. So they've actually broken that up. There's going to be 2 waves. So we have some athletes in the first wave, and then we have some athletes in the second wave. The second are the ones that are, I forget what the parameter is, but it's either the top 30 or top 40 in the country, I think is the way they broke it up. And so, we have some current athletes that are going to be at both. And as we come off the NCAA season, it's going to be, we're getting right back into that. And we're going to try and do everything we can to help our athletes represent there. Cameron Tyso, one of our postgraduates, literally just left today to go back to Australia. He's got a quarantine for 2 weeks. He was the 4th fastest Australian in the 200-meter backstroke last year. So he has a really good shot at representing his country. Josh Danhauser, who I talked about earlier, is a South African national. So he's going to have the opportunity to potentially represent his country. And so, it's not only domestically here in the United States, but we have a couple of international student athletes too that we're going to try and put them in a position to qualify for Tokyo.